Welcome everyone to the blaxploitation edition of Just Joshing, part 1 of 2 of I called it unjokingly online pornopod. It's not actually accurate. This week though is kind of fun. Having a little bit of fun here this week because my guest is none other than hot Gothic himself, Axel Howerton. Why is he called Hot Gothic, you ask? Well, as you will see in the conversation upcoming, he refers to himself as this at the very beginning of our conversation, and we had fun, and it's like, I was going to do I told him, it's like, you should do like a blaxploitation thing, and, like Black Diamond, it's like totally my bag. So today, in honor of said blaxploitation, there's a special song both dedicated to Mr. Axel here, courtesy of the Manahan Street Band. He digs it. It's going to be kind of fun. And don't worry, I got some classic blaxploitation to close the show out too. I hope you like Cleopatra Jones, Axel. In all seriousness, no, Axel is actually a really talented dude. He's one of the most comfortable performers I've ever seen in front of a stage, an audience. Some writers are very awkward when they get up in front of an audience. I'm a little awkward too. I have this Peter Parker nervousness, and Axel doesn't have that at all. He's complete. I mean, I'm sure there's butterflies because I don't think you ever not want there to be butterflies. But he's very comfortable up there. He's very used to performing. You can see that, and he was great to talk to as a result. It didn't have a lot of the awkward trends I tend to have with some of my guests, although I love them all. Some open up easier than others. I literally had someone I asked to do the podcast this week, and they were like, it's kind of scary, I'll get back to you, and then I haven't heard anything one way or the other. I'm going to be doing something real cool real soon. For the month of March, I'm actually going to do my first ever ad. It's not done by me, which is going to be really cool. And we'll talk about that down the road. This podcast is coming out a touch early, just because, right now I am supposed to be cleaning, getting my place ready for being sprayed. Bedbugs were discovered to the floor above me, and the place is being fumigated as a result. As soon as I'm done this podcast, I get back to work on it. But in the meantime, figured I get this out early. I recommend you check out Furr. Axel's book Furr is phenomenal. The only criticism I kind of have to it is I really feel the book doesn't start till chapter 3, but it's really, really good, and I think it's one of the better werewolf. It's one of the better werewolf stories I've heard in a long time, and you should definitely check it out. All right, I'm gonna quit going. We're gonna add some random. Little music here. So the first thing I'm gonna do is, very appropriate to him, a little bit of Manahan Street Band there coming up next.
People.
Power to the people. You love people then, so it's all good.
Sure, why not?
Why not? Why not indeed?
Eat with steak sauce.
Yes. Why not? So, by the way, I finished your book. I got to read it. It was really fun. My thing is, I almost feel like it was a touch slow at the beginning, but it really picks up right around chapter 5. It was a really fun read. It reminded me of what the heck? It reminded me a little bit of some of the stuff I read from people like The Lens, but it felt a little bit more down to earth. It's down to earth. So it was a really fun read. So good luck with the rest of the series. So this is your first novel? Like, is this the first longer form?
No. Nope. My first novel, Hot Sinatra, was published 2013, end of 2013. It was finalist for Best First Novel in the Arthur Ellis Awards.
Congratulations.
Thank you. That's still out there. But then, it took a while, and I was just working on short stuff. I had written a couple of books in there, but didn't really finish those and get them out anywhere. I got into publishing myself. I published 3 anthologies. I'm working on a 4th and a 5th one now. That was Death by Drive-In, which was a collection of horror short stories with B-movie and drive-in movie themes.
That's awesome.
Tall Tales of the Weird West came out last spring. That was Weird Westerns. That featured Jackson Lowry, which is a pen name for Robert E. Vardman, he'd been around since the 80s. He used to write Star Trek and Star Wars tie-ins and stuff. Now he does Warhammer, I think.
Yep.
Scott S. Phillips, a bunch of different people. Then I did AB Negative last year. That was 14 Alberta-based crime writers writing Alberta-set crime stories.
Yes.
That did really well. And then last year, 2015, talking to some people at the When Words Collide conference, it came up about, I was kind of mouthing off about people cranking out books 10 a year kind of thing. And, and another fabulous writer, Krista Ball, dared me to write a book in 6 weeks. So I wrote Furr initially in 5.5 weeks and had kind of just passed it around to a couple of people just to see what they thought. And it got put into a collection, an ebook collection with a bunch of different writers, including Charles DeLint and Krista Ball. And that did extremely well in Kindle sales last Christmas. And Tyke'd gotten a hold of it, and they liked it so much that they wanted to do a full release, just of Furr. So I did a little rewrite, and we kind of polished things up a little bit, and I added a couple of chapters to it. And, that came out just last month.
Yes, it did.
And it's doing very well right now. I was number 9 in the Gothic Supernatural hot releases. So I guess I can now say I'm hot Gothic.
You are hot Gothic? Totally.
Hot Gothic.
That's right.
Yeah, that's going to be my new thing. I'm putting it on all my shirts.
Okay. It almost sounds pornographic, almost.
Exactly.
It just has that quality of it's just like hot Gothic, and you're just like, or one of those really old blaxploitation style shows, just something along that line. I'm of the mindset of like the most recent, like not so long ago movie released, Black Dynamite. It kind of has that, totally that feeling. So,
I love Black Dynamite, and those are all things I personify myself.
Oh, okay. So Black Dynamite is I watched that. It was like at first I'm like, this is terrible, but they all realize it, so they're having fun with it,
Yep.
and that's the thing I think that made that work is when you see I think it's Michael J. White just goofing off and having a good time. It's like, okay, this is amazing stuff.
He's a funny guy. He's a good guy. I actually interviewed him once years ago. When I used to be an entertainment journalist before I got back into fiction writing, and I did interviews and reviews, and went to conventions, went to San Diego, that kind of thing.
San Diego. I've only been to San Diego once. It's huge.
Madness.
Yes, I got to play Street Fighter 4 before anybody else did because it was only available there. That was when I went, and I was playing pinball with all the volunteers actually too, because they had actually an old school pinball machine. I miss those actually. So, but it's a monster show. It's literally the scariest show I've ever been to, because there's just no way you can see it all in one day, or 2, or 3. It's just ginormous.
The only regret I actually have about that is I did not get the chance to meet Ray Bradbury. I'm a big Ray Bradbury fan.
I did meet Ray Bradbury.
I am jealous.
I don't know if that was the last year he was there. It was 2007, and he did a panel with, it was Ray Bradbury and Ray Harryhausen together doing a panel. And I was bloody shocked because I was lined up for hours, and, you know, my partner had gone off and he was doing other stuff. That was my boss at the website, and the two of us went down to San Diego, and he was doing certain panels, I was doing certain panels, and I really wanted to see Bradbury, so I was standing out in front of this room for hours, and there was maybe two other people there with me, and then when it finally, the show started, the panel starts, we're in this little room, Ray Bradbury's just in his wheelchair at the front of the room, there's no table, there's no podium, and Harryhausen's just sitting on a folding chair next to him, and there was like 30 people in the room. I was shocked, but it was amazing.
Oh yeah.
And then I got to talk to him for like 30 seconds afterwards, just, you know, kind of kneeling next to his wheelchair outside of the room. But man, that was one of the big points of my life and career.
Oh yeah,
Totally. That was one of the things that made me want to get back into fiction writing, because I had been writing fiction, you know, my whole life, and you know, like everybody, I had my college novel that's tucked away in a box and will never see the light of day, and short stories, and I had stuff published when I was a teenager, and I wrote for, you know, local zines, and did articles for, you know, local papers and music reviews and stuff like that before I got into the movie stuff. But I never really actively pursued fiction the way that I should have when I was younger, and I put it off, and I told myself I wouldn't be able to make it, and I wasn't good enough, and and when I came back from that trip after having met Ray Bradbury and some of the other people that I talked to there, I was just kind of energized to really do something creative. And I'd been doing little short films and skits and stuff as part of the movie review thing, and just wanted to expand that more. And I got back into fiction writing, and in short order, I ended up doing some editing for a new horror quarterly called Dark Moon Digest. And then from there, I just kind of like hopped across things, editing, and then getting my own short stories out there. And then I put together a blog hop, I guess, basically. But it was all horror writers, because at the time, back around 2011, there was all these blog hops going on. It was the new big thing, but they were all romance writers. Yeah. And, you know, Dark Moon Digest, I was a horror writer. All my friends were horror writers. And there wasn't really anything going on for us other than a couple of little tiny things. So I set up this big blog hop that was a week long, the week leading up to Halloween, and turned it into a big, fun, collaborative thing where everybody kind of helped each other out. Everybody cross-promoted, and everybody sent everybody to the other people's sites. And we went from 50 or 60 people the first year to 500, 600 the third year.
Nice.
And that's where that first collection that I published came out of. Was they wanted to put out a collection, so we did a charity anthology, and then it's just compounded from there, I guess.
Oh. Excellent.
Ray Bradbury is to blame for it all.
Yes, actually, that's not a bad thing. And I am a little jealous. I'm a little jealous because I was only there for the first 2 days of the con, so he always shows up on the Saturday, and when he did them, and it's amazing they had to talk here. The I was at the time working with James Owen, and he does novel stuff like the Here There Be Dragons, Red Dragon. Like it's a decent series. And he told me it's like Ray Bradbury is the one guy. It doesn't matter who you are, whether you're literature, whether you're comics. That's everybody wants to take that time to actually meet him at some point. So it's like that always that I met Rob Sawyer. That's where I met Rob Sawyer, though. Was at the San Diego Comic Con when Jeff Johns was at his absolute hottest. I was in the science fiction room with Rob Sawyer. There's only a few people there, but I actually think I got more out of that than I would have gotten out of meeting Jeff Johns. But that's my San Diego experience. But it explains a few things though about you, because you're very comfortable up on in front of people, and based on what you're telling me with the skits and stuff you've done, it makes sense. You've performed quite a bit in your life, whether it's just skits or whether you've been in front of the camera doing interviews, that kind of stuff. So you're used to a back and forth with an audience of some kind. Does that make sense?
Yes and no. I mean, I still get a little jittery and stuff, and it's hard to get back into when you don't do it for a while. You know, you take time off and write a book for a few months. Or you're working on publishing a book, and you don't do any book events for a while, and then But I did drama from when I was 12 years old, and I did performing arts, and I've lived in Calgary most of my life. I went to Crescent Heights. I was in the Mr. and Miss Crescent contest when I was there. I worked at the North Hill Cinerama.
Okay.
If anybody remembers, that was the big, beautiful theater at North Hill. It's a parking lot now. It was the second biggest single theater in North America. And we would have, sold out crowds there for things like Jurassic Park. I think we had sold out crowds for 2 months straight for Jurassic Park. And I'd be out, as a doorman walking the line in the rain, and I'd be up on that infamous sign on 16th Avenue getting blown off onto the highway. But one of the other things that we had to do is that was around when they started having these hawking carts where you take the cart down into the theater with popcorn and drinks and stuff. And I was always so embarrassed just walking down there and just standing there in the corner of the room with this bloody cart. And one of the things I had to do as a doorman was, if it was a sellout crowd, we had to try and get people to move in and put all the empty seats on the outside of the rows, so it was easier for people to find seats when they came in. And so I just kind of naturally started turning that into a whole little vaudeville show. So I'd come down with the hawking cart, and I'd do a whole bit, and I'd be working up the crowd and getting people to move around and stuff. So it always kind of comes out of discomfort for me. But once I'm in that zone and I'm kind of shucking and jiving, then it seems to come pretty naturally and works pretty well a lot of the time. I'm getting more used to, and I'm enjoying more doing events like things at Owl's Nest and at the When Words Collide convention. I've done some classes with Alexander Writers Center and stuff, and I'm starting to get more used to doing those. The ones in the bookstore, like at the chapters, and you're just kind of standing there at a table, those get a little more draining. You're just standing at a table, and people walk by, and kind of, if you're not Chuck Palahniuk or James Patterson, they just kind of, most of them give you a little piteous look and then continue on their way. But I started practicing doing magic tricks.
Interesting.
More to entertain myself than anything else, and allay the boredom, but it brings the kids over, and you do some jokes and some tricks for the kids, and then the parents have to come over, and then once in a while they ask about it, and then you can get into your sales pitch. I find it's always worthwhile to have something different that engages people and breaks the ice before you jump into your sales pitch, because I've seen a lot of indie writers and publishers, and even back when I was doing the entertainment stuff, the guys that were putting out their own movies or had their own little indie video studios and stuff, because I kind of specialized in the B-movie horror stuff. So I dealt with a lot of indie guys, and you go places like the Calgary Comic Con or the Horror Con or San Diego even, and a lot of those guys, they're just standing out there like they're hawking people in, and
doesn't work.
It's like it's like a sideshow. They're trying to hustle everybody in, and
it doesn't.
Most of the time, it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't, because it's not. I used to. I don't know if you ever listened to podcasts. I've told the story a few times. I used to do an event in Phoenix, Arizona called First Friday. If you've ever been to Phoenix, but the first Friday of every month, all the artists would get, like, the local art scene would get together at different blocks of the city. I mean, it was a pretty huge deal. You find yourself beside some, like, all kinds of things. Whether one time I was beside a rock concert and I was beside a glasswork place at the same time. It's like, what the hell am I supposed to do to compete with this? Well, I learned to talk, right? And that I find, like, when I'm doing a show, I make eye contact, I say hello to everybody. It's not like a big magical trick or anything like that. I just find that the whole thing is you talk to them, you say hello. A lot of them still will walk by, but some of them will engage you. And then from there, if there's a moment of engagement, I actually say, can I do my lame 30-second pitch? And a lot of people just take it for the joke it is, and I pitch, and sometimes they like it, sometimes they don't. But I've learned how to break the ice with people that way, because if you're competing against some really amazing stuff that's very visual and very easy to sell because it's right in front of them. The thing about books is you can't really, as a beautiful a cover as you can make, you can't really get the experience of the book until you actually read it. So you actually literally have to talk them into looking at that. And whereas a lot of other arts, it's a visual thing. You'll make your decision looking at the cover. And I'm not saying that the visual artists or the musicians, because the musicians perform, don't have to talk and be somewhat engaging themselves. But it's a little easier for them because you kind of see what they do before you talk to them, right? Whereas writers, generally speaking, have to, publishers and movies as well. You have to take a moment to actually engage your audience before they take the chance on your stuff, and that's a skill like every indie author needs to learn on some level. And I find the best way is just talk and engage. Myself is talking and engage them. Magic tricks, I still think hot gothic like you should have like the Black Diamond. I think it was like hot gothic. People will be wondering. People will be wondering what the hell is that at the very least. Like, okay, you have my attention. What the heck is that? And then you go into your spiel and they're like, oh, okay, cool, all right. But they won't feel so that like you've broken the ice. So if nothing else, their curiosity will win you over. So
yeah, I'm gonna start building little blimp drones and have little LED messages that just say hot gothic flying around me and little screens with geishas, kind of Blade Runnery.
But
just set that all up at my book displays at the bookstore and see how that does.
I think the real secret is you gotta have a catchy, like the Shaft, right? Like you just gotta have like your own kind of thing. It has to sound just right, and you just get people, you get a recording of it, and just blurt it out everywhere randomly, and then people will be like, "What the hell is that?" Right?
It is a hard nut to crack, and you have to be able to create a persona and be able to sell that persona, and it's a lot harder with books than it is with other things because a lot of people are really hesitant to put in that investment. You know, yeah, it may be the same price as buying a DVD, but the DVD is only going to cost them an hour and a half of their time.
Yes.
The book is something they have to sit down and they have to make time for and they have to concentrate on. And there's a lot of people out there that are, ravenous book readers, and that's great. And those people will buy almost anything, sight unseen, because they're going to read it and they're not questioning how much time it's going to use up. But for most people, trying to get them to buy a book from somebody they've never heard of, a book they've never heard of, is a really tough sell. And even I have a long way to go. Like the best people at selling themselves are so comfortable in their own skin and so engaging, like Chuck Palahniuk and Neil Gaiman. And besides being phenomenal writers, which I think also comes from the same place of just being so comfortable with themselves, when you see them in person at a book event, at a signing, at a reading, they're just so genuine and so engaging and so quietly charismatic that you can't help but say, I love this dude. I want to buy his book just because I like him so much. And that's kind of where you have to really try and get yourself to get really successful, I think, and then just kind of disseminate that so that people know that you're out there.
Yes, I actually agree with. I agree with pretty much all of that. I would go, like, for me, like, my writing in particular turned a corner when I just realized who I was as a person. I think in defense of younger you, I'm actually is. When you start writing, a lot, like, I found, like, a lot of stuff is, like, more in your head, right? You're writing about a concept, or you're bringing out something, and it's not necessarily a bad piece of work, but it's not you. There's a piece of you that's just not there. I think once you realize who you are as a person, right, you're able to translate that more onto the page. My writing got a lot better once I was able to do that. It took me a long time, though. I think a lot of people, when they write books and stuff like that, it might seem like a very insignificant thing, but you got to be comfortable in your own skin. You got to know who you are, and you got to know what you offer, because that's what you're going to ultimately say on the page, and that's what ultimately resonates with people. It's not your concept about a jar of dirt. I'm just using that as an example. It can be anything, really. It's what you're saying behind all that stuff that people really relate to. It's not, and like I said, there's a big it's a big jump for any artist, I think, to get to that point where they're comfortable enough to show those parts of themselves to people, because even then you're still going to get rejection, and that's a hard thing. So, but once you get to that point, that's when real success can find you. So. I think if you're at that point, man, then I think you're well on your way. So
I think so, and I think that's the being honest with yourself and understanding yourself. That honesty comes through in your work, and it seems genuine, and that's what comes across. Because if you're trying to ape somebody else, you're trying to copy a formula, you're trying to write like what's successful, or you're trying to hone in on that new fad, and you want to write just, lesbian vampire noir with urban fantasy elements, because that's the new thing that was successful last week. It's not going to ring true, and it's not going to be as entertaining, and it's certainly not going to be anything deep or meaningful, because you're just manufacturing something. It can't be... I know there's a lot of people out there who do very well manufacturing a certain style to the point where, somebody like James Patterson doesn't even write his books anymore. He writes out the basic plot, and then somebody else comes in and they copy his style and just crank out the books based on his outline, and then they pop his name on it. But to me, that's not, that's every book's going to read the same, and everything's going to be the same thing over and over again. And some people like that, but I don't think it's meaningful, and I don't think it's art. And in the end, regardless of how commercial what you're doing is and how well you can sell it, to me, writing through history and up to now and into the future has to be a work of art more than a work of commerce. But that may just be my opinion.
I actually agree with that. I'm actually curious. My actual opinion with Patterson is I'm curious what he'd write today if he actually was still writing books, because he hasn't done it in a long, long time. I mean, he's got his formula down, but he's comfortable. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Yeah. But
that was, there was a whole generation of writers, and I'm not denigrating those writers, because some really great writers came out of that tradition of guys that just cranked out formula stuff for money. That's where the dime novel stuff and the pulp magazine stuff came from.
Oh, absolutely.
And that gave us Hammett and Chandler and Jim Thompson, Charles Wilford, guys like that.
Absolutely.
And they started in that pattern of cranking stuff out, and that taught them the stylistic mechanics of writing. But then they had so much more to offer once they got out of that milieu and started putting themselves into those books and the things that they loved and the things that they respected. You know, what comes across in Chandler's work isn't just same old tough guy pulp two-fisted formula. It's that he loved Los Angeles and California so much, and he loved the romantic ideals of writers like Walter Scott so much that he infused all that and put all of those things that he loved together in something new and at the time modern, and it resonated with people because while a lot of people may not have still been reading Sir Walter Scott, that's filtered through our culture to where people understood that and they identified with it, and then it became a piece of art. And that's why we still talk about Chandler's work today and talk about Chandler or Hammett or Jim Thompson as, you know, a titan of those times and a literary writer rather than just a, you know, genre crime writer like they would have been considered at the time. Now they're literary writers and they're legends. Yep. You know, same with Ray Bradbury. He was a science fiction writer. And at the time when he was cranking short stories out in all of the science fiction magazines and making his living that way by putting out that volume, not only was he teaching himself to write what he would eventually come to with things like Fahrenheit and, you know, the Martian Chronicles and Something Wicked This Way Comes, but I'm losing my train of thought. But, you know, it became art when he was able to put all the things that he really loved in it and not worry about the genre. Now Ray Bradbury is, you know, like Kurt Vonnegut, also a science fiction writer for the most part, but they put so many other big ideas and big concepts and so much humanity into their work that it can't be denied, and it transcends genre and becomes art.
I agree.
And that's what I think we should all aim for.
Absolutely. So I'll ask you this question, and then we'll wrap up and promote the heck out of all your stuff. Who are okay? So if there are authors, I'm sure there are authors you, when it's all said and done, you wouldn't mind being compared to. Like, who did you read that you really wanted to be more like?
Everybody I just mentioned.
Yeah, fair enough.
You know, I have so many influences and so many things that I love, going back to, you know, poetry. You know, Walt Whitman was a huge influence on me when I was younger and I was writing poetry, and that I think is still translated into my style now. But, you know, Bradbury for sure, Kurt Vonnegut, Chandler and Hammett, and, you know, Jim Thompson, maybe not as much. He's a little darker and crazier than I usually get. But at the same time, you know, I'm kind of known as the noir guy now. And I've learned about all these guys, and I've really taken in their work and processed it. And I can see what's there. Newer guys like Michael Chabon, Chuck Palahniuk. I may not always love all of Chuck Palahniuk's work, but I love what he puts into it. Yeah. And one of my biggest influences, my biggest teachers was W.P. Kinsella, who I had done some classes with forever ago, and I corresponded with him for a while. And he was a huge influence on me, especially being a Canadian writer, somebody that infused his work with this kind of magic and mysticism, and yet it was still funny and it was poetic. And he was just so brilliant. And he was here last year, and I hadn't seen him in probably a decade. And he was, you know, I was kind of shocked to see him. And he, you know, he was looking so old and kind of worn out. And I asked him how he was feeling, and he just kind of gave me a little bit of a hangdog look and said he was really tired because he'd been on this book tour and everything. And then not long ago he passed away, and that was heartbreaking for me on the same level as Ray Bradbury. And those people, I think we really need to cling to and keep taking their work into ourselves and really learning from people like that had so much humanity and so much feeling come across in their art.
I don't know Kinsella, but the thing I loved about Bradbury personally is he was the guy that like, I always get this impression. He was the guy once upon a time that would show up to your party, a drink in hand, maybe a cigar, maybe not. He'd grab you, he'd drag you out to the balcony and make you look outside. It's like, look how magical this all is. That's what I always loved about Bradbury. So,
and that's what Bill was like. A couple of times I've talked to Chuck Palahniuk. He has that kind of outlook. And Neil Gaiman, who's bigger and better and more brilliant than Neil Gaiman right now. And that's somebody that really is spiritual in the sense that he takes life and puts it out in his art, and that's a rarer thing to find these days than maybe it used to be, or maybe that's just the kind of the vantage point that you get being in this moment. But I think we need more people like that. And Bill Kinsella, what most people know him from is that he wrote the book Shoeless Joe, that they turned into the movie with Kevin Costner. And now the name's escaping me.
Field of Dreams?
Field of Dreams.
Yes.
He wrote the book that they made Field of Dreams from. And the book is, as always, slightly different, a little more poetic than the movie even. But he was a beautiful, beautiful writer and a beautiful human being. And from my short introduction to him, Ray Bradbury was, and a lot of these guys, Kurt Vonnegut has always talked about that way, and that's what I hope to eventually be able to bring to the world is, put that humanity and that feeling and that emotion and that spirituality forth without all the trappings of religion or politics or anything else. Just, really talk about life
and living.
But make it entertaining.
Life, loving one another, and being kind. What everybody can look forward to. All right. You might have to give up. You might have to give up. You might have to give up the hot noir. Strippers? What? No.
Might have to
give up the hot gothic. You might have to give that up, though. I'm just saying.
I don't know.
Maybe
I think there's room.
There's room for
all.
Okay.
Makeup styles.
Fair enough. All right. So people want to find you. People want to know what you're up to. How would they do so?
Well, my website, nice and easy, is www.axelhow.com. AXELHOW. Most places on the internet you can find me under Axel Howe or Axel Howerton. Hashtag that stuff. I could have mentioned before, I'm the Prairies Director of the Crime Writers of Canada, so if anybody has questions or inquiries or curious about the Crime Writers of Canada, I'm your guy. Right now, the new book, Furr, is on sale until almost the end of the month, I think, for $1 on Kindle. You can't beat that. Paperbacks are available anywhere fine books are sold. If they don't have it, just ask for it. They liked that one so much that they've greenlit the first in a probably 5-part series, which is what I'm working on right now, and that's going to come out next August. That's Wolf and Devil. First book is called Demon Days. I'm going to be working on a holiday crime anthology with another great local writer, Robert Bowes. And we're going to find some really great crime writers and get some funny holiday-themed crime stories in there. And I'm working on a book for 2018 of just female Canadian crime writers to celebrate the Year of Publishing Women. I'm more or less hands-off with that. I have some fabulous lady editors who are spearheading that, and I'm just kind of doing the mechanics behind it. And yeah, all my other stuff's available online on Amazon, Kobo, anywhere you can get them. Books are in paperback and available pretty much anywhere. Chapters Indigo, Owl's Nest usually has them.
Fair enough.
That's me.
That's you. Twitter.
And one last thing, if you go to my website and you sign up for the email list, you do get exclusive short story collections, one of which those stories are no longer available anywhere else. They all tie into my first novel, Hot Sinatra. And the only way you can get those stories now is either if I'm at a convention with my paperback copies or by signing up for the email list.
Very cool. And I think we have an interview.
And that was Axel Howerton. Check out Hot Sinatra. Sign up for his newsletter. Check out Furr. They're really, really good stuff. He does some great things. I'm hoping to see him and catch up with him in March and set up something else really cool down the line with him, as I've talked to him about. And yeah, like I said, it's been a crazy time. This is unfortunately it. As you can see, I had a little fun with this week's episode. The Hot Gothic edition is now in the books. I want to thank everybody for listening. Buy my books, The Watcher, Storm Dancer, available at mirrorworldbooks.com or on Amazon, Chapters Indigo, wherever electronic and books are sold. You can get them there. Or you can, subscribe to my newsletter, tinyletter.com/jpenteloresco. You can check out my clients, Craig DeLuis' books, Crash Dive, Silent Running, and Battle Stations, all available at Amazon. You can check out Chris Mars, Wild Woman, Everything Leads Back to Alice, or Intersections. Check them out. All right. Stay inspired out there. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, whatever that is. Anyway, I'm out.